Hello everybody, welcome to Behind the Badge. I'm Chloe McKibben and today we're going to explore what it really means to feel safe and who helps make that a possibility. In Middlesbrough, safety is not just a service but a shared responsibility between those who wear the badge and those who live just across the street. We spoke to a frontline officer from the Cleveland Police. He is not a press officer, he is not a spokesperson, but a real voice from the beat, from the community, from the front line of change.
I'm a sergeant within the neighbourhood team in Cleveland Police. I'm Des Horton. I cover Hemlington, Corby, Newham, Stainton and Thornton, working from the Corby Newham office where we are now. I've been in the police for around 6 years. I've been working as a sergeant in this office for around a year and a half.
Here in Middlesbrough, policing is changing. It's becoming less about control and more about connection. Because as social needs grow more complex and trust in public institutions is tested, community policing has stepped into the spotlight, not just to reduce crime, but to rebuild relationships. Our interview with the Cleveland Police explores just that. Let's listen in to the answers that he has for the questions. The Cleveland Police recorded a 20% increase in community outreach over the past years. How have these proactive engagements influenced trust building?
Yeah, I mean, that's something I can talk about quite comfortably. So the neighbourhood policing team are the team that do a lot of that outreach, which is, as I said, the team that I look after. From our perspective, we have a team of PCSOs and police officers, and their primary role is to be out in the community, being visible and talking to people, be that on a day-to-day basis, just the people and me, to be at engagement events, which will be the sort of things that you're talking about a little bit within your question, and a number of other engagement activities as well. For me, it's not a case of how important it is, it's crucial. It's the be-all and end-all of neighbourhood policing is actually that outreach to communities, because it has a number of purposes. The first is building trust, which you mentioned, and if we can't build trust in our communities, it's very difficult to actively serve our communities. Ultimately, it's a founding principle of the police that the people are the police and the police are the people, so we need to be at that level where we're talking to them on a day-by-day basis, and I'm certainly very proud that it's the sort of thing my team does. The other side of it is we also have to be out in the community, because actually that's where a lot of our information comes from. We can't know what the people of the area are struggling with if we don't talk to them. We can't rely on people always coming to us, so it gives us an opportunity to go out and speak to them, if that makes sense. So in short, to answer your question, it's absolutely critical that we get out there and do that.
In the past 2 years, the Foot Patrol in high crime neighbourhoods contributed to a 15% reduction in reported crimes. Can you share instances where this initiative made a noticeable impact on residents' well-being?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll talk to you about something called Operation Fortress, which is an operation that we've been running in Hemlington. It's an operation that spanned officially for just over a year, but still ongoing in the day-to-day activities that we do, the day-to-day work that we do. And Op Fortress was designed exactly around what you're asking. So Hemlington had quite a few challenges around antisocial behaviour, around certain levels of criminality that were happening on a day-to-day basis. There was a large piece of problem-solving work done between the police, between council, between housing, between a number of other partners as well, to how we best solve this. And we came out with a number of different actions around it. Those included things like the high visibility patrols, but they actually not just doing them on an ad hoc basis, doing them with the evidence behind of what areas were most affected, at what times, who the best people were to service that, whether it was the police, which often it was, but also whether it was one of the partners, which often it was as well. There was also work done around education with some of the children in the schools, which again was picked up by the neighbourhood policing team, and work done with people like the fire brigade, which we've got just behind ourselves, that were going out and dealing with potential litter fires on a regular basis and how we could actually support those. The amount of work that went into that was quite extensive, to the point where we've actually got a locality setting now where the council, the police, 13 and the others work together in the same location, so we can do quick time actions. That's actually had some really positive figures, and over the last 12-month measure, it's actually dropped antisocial behaviour by 93%, it's dropped deliberate fires by 89%, and it's dropped criminality by 63%. So that's some huge effects, and all of those are passed on to the communities. There's still a way to go, and as I said, it's ongoing work, and I'm not one to say that it's done. It isn't, it'll never be done. We need to keep going and keep doing this work, because as long as there's any form of criminality and antisocial behaviour, that means there's a victim, so we need to help those victims as we go.
We looked into recent statistics, and we asked the following question. Recent statistics indicated a 98% compliance rate with body-worn cameras among Cleveland police officers. How does this department leverage this technology to address abuse of power or misconduct?
So the body-worn usage is a great tool, to be perfectly honest. So all the officers are issued with body-worns when they come in on a day-by-day basis. And there is an expectation that on certain events they are used from the start of an interaction right through until after the individual has left. It's a twofold benefit. It allows us to gain evidence, for one, which I know isn't the question that you asked, but that's a primary tool. It also protects the officers as well, because if things are on camera, we can actually go back and review them. Specifically to the abuse of power question that you asked, I'll touch on that in two different ways. First on the body-worn cameras, but then a little bit wider if that's okay. So the body-worn cameras are regularly spot checked and regularly reviewed by myself and by the other sergeants who do those. Also reviewed on an ad hoc basis as well by other people within the police force, which means that when I'm not actually out there with my officers, which I am a lot of the time anyway, but when I'm not with them, I can still keep an eye on exactly what's done, what's happening at any time, and to make sure that they're acting within the standards that I and Cleveland Police would expect. On a wider basis though, the body cameras only play a part of that. We have a Department of Standard Ethics that deal with things like misconduct and abuse of power, and they proactively look on any information that's given and any investigations to make sure that the standards are at highest possible level. The officers work within the Code of Ethics, that's ingrained in them from training, so the police should be held to that high standard, and thankfully they are, and the body-worn plays part of that.
Middlesbrough is a diverse community, so we asked the Cleveland Police about training the officers received in order to engage with the community. Approximately 70% of officers underwent cultural competence training in the past year. Can you elaborate on specific aspects covered and how this training positively influences interactions with residents from diverse backgrounds? Here's what he had to say.
From the minute officers come into training school, there's a huge amount of work done on their self-awareness. Now, that covers a lot of things, but part of that is what you're talking about with diversity as well. Be that discussing things, for example, like the women's network that can be there, discussing different ethnicities and the levels of, not the levels of interaction, the standards of interaction around a cultural perspective as well. So, for example, if someone was going to be visiting a temple or a mosque, making sure that they have a full understanding of what's expected of them as far as, for example, footwear when they're going, and things that actually may not have been touched on before. On a wider basis, it's actually, like I said, there's work on ethics, there's work on unconscious bias, which is a huge one as well, to make sure that actually all officers are fully prepared for every interaction that they're going to have to the best of the ability that we can give them. There is also an expectation that officers almost self-train as well and gain an understanding of what's happening in the world to make sure that actually they're culturally aware as well as aware of the law and the standards from that perspective.
How did the Cleveland Police gather feedback from the community to improve their day-to-day activities?
Absolutely, and that's a massive one, and that again comes down a lot of the time to my department. So as I mentioned in that earlier question, one of our engagement is we do community events. Now those can include community council meetings, they can include drop-ins with the community, for example at a cafe, at a shopping centre, whatever works, where we're actually opening up and we speak to the public. Why we're going out is exactly what you're asking. We go out to see how they're feeling around things, and if there's things we can do different, if there's things that are affecting them that perhaps aren't getting dealt with to the way they'd like them to be dealt with. That then gets fed back through the PCSOs, through the police officers, it feeds into myself. And if it's something we can deal with as a team, we would generally deal with it. But if it's something wider and it needs to be passed up the line, there's very sort of standard channels that we would then pass that up through the rank structure, me to my inspector to the wider teams, and actually look at how we can then engage and change things. The beauty of neighbourhoods is that we're out there all the time. So we are interacting with the public pretty much every day. It's about building trust with them. And when we build trust with the public, they'll tell us more and they'll talk to us more. Because the other issue we have to counter is that reluctance at times to speak out that you can get in certain pockets of the community. That's our responsibility to break that down and to actually encourage them to talk to us. Because again, without being told the information, we have no way of knowing it. So we have to do that on an ongoing basis. That feedback comes in and gets assessed.
And lastly, we asked for any words of advice for the public.
I think the thing for me, the first thing is to thank you for working with us on an ongoing basis, and it's an ask to continue to do so. If the public work with us and if they'll speak to us, the more we know, the more we can do. The more we can do, the more we can help. The more we can help, the safer we can make people. But it all comes down to that ask of please speak to us on a regular basis. We are there to help.
The more we know, the more we can do. The more we can do, the more we can help. Behind the Badge is a documentary about what it takes to build trust in today's community, where safety is not just the main goal, but a daily, ongoing negotiation. If we want safer communities, we can't just ask who's protecting us. We must ask, what are we doing to protect each other? I'm Chloe McKibben, and this is Behind the Badge.